The Tigers are riding a heater in this recruiting class. Another top 100 commitment. We're talking about him. Locked on LSU. Let's go.
You are Locked on LSU, your daily podcast on the LSU Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Okay, let's get it. It is Locked on LSU, your team every day. I'm your host, Matt Moscona. Thanks so much for making us your first listen. We are free, available wherever you get podcasts, of course, on YouTube as well. So please subscribe. As always, one of the fastest ways to help us grow is by leaving your comments below. So thank you for that. It feels like we're doing this over and over and over again. You know, our buddy Shea Dixon from On3, the Bengal Tiger, predicted that in this spring period, LSU would land 4 or 5 commitments. Well, after the news on Saturday, that would be 3 so far. Of course, the news coming on Saturday that Jabari Mack, the wide receiver out of Destrehan, one of the top players in the state of Louisiana for the class of 2026, picked the Tigers. If you're not familiar with Jabari Mack, let me go ahead and give you a little bit of the rundown on his bio. So Jabari Mack is a 6-foot, 200-pound receiver. He has been on all the 7-on-7 circuits, all the elite camp circuits, all the everything, right? This is a guy who is, while he may not have the biggest size of the big, tall, long receivers, you're talking about elite athleticism and physicality, and he has offers from everybody. LSU, Ohio State, Mississippi State, Oregon, Texas, Texas A&M, Auburn, Penn State, Tennessee, Miami, Florida State, Michigan. You get in the point. I could go on. Nebraska, Cal, Baylor, Georgia Tech, everybody. Jabari Mack got offers from everybody. So you're talking about a guy that is truly an elite, top-of-the-line receiving prospect. And not only that, another guy from the state of Louisiana now, one of those 6, right? We're talking so much about the top 6 guys in the state that are all top 100 prospects. Jabari Mack is in that number. In the composite by On3, he's number 82 overall. He's the number 11 wide receiver in the country and the 5th best player in Louisiana. That puts into perspective just how good the state of Louisiana is here in 2026 when a guy that's number 82 nationally, any position overall, is the 5th best player in your state. I know we've talked about it a bunch. It feels redundant, but it's such a bumper crop in the state. You got to keep these guys home. And my goodness, what a job Brian Kelly and his staff are doing already. You got Richard Anderson, the number 1 defensive tackle in the country, the number 29 overall prospect committed. Aiden Hall, number 55 nationally, the 5th best safety in the country committed. Now Jabari Mack, number 82 overall, is committed. And then Bryson Martinez, number 92 overall, is committed. 4 of the top 6 prospects in the state of Louisiana. The 4 top 100 guys are 4 of the 6 are committed. The only 2 you don't have committed yet are the top 2. And of course, that's Lamar Brown, the offensive lineman from U-High, who has said LSU is his leader, and Blaine Bradford, who looks like he's down to LSU, Texas, and Ohio State. So we'll continue to follow this along throughout with those other 2 guys, but just focusing on Louisiana is going to net a massive class, and that's on top of what the Tigers have already done here in adding Tristan Keys, the number 1 receiver in the country out of Hattiesburg, Mississippi. That was on Friday, and then you come back on Saturday. On Thursday, then come back on Friday. You add Dylan Purter, the cornerback, defensive back out of Alabama. And then here on Saturday, LSU lands Jabari Mack. So boom, boom, boom. 3 straight days, 3 straight gigantic commitments for LSU. Let's talk a little bit about why the Jabari Mack commitment is really significant. Aside from the obvious, top 100 player from the state of Louisiana. And I'll remind you as well, he is now already the 4th receiver committed in this class. You've got Mack, Kenny Darby out of Shreveport, Ja'Kai Anderson out of McDonough 35, and then, of course, Tristan Keys, the number 1 receiver in the country. That's 4 receivers among your 9 commitments so far. You may think that's way too many. You don't need that many receivers in one class. I'm here to tell you, when you look at the numbers at receiver, this is one of those years where they've got to go heavy. Okay. Consider Aaron Anderson, going to be gone. Chris Hilton, going to be gone. Xavier Thomas, going to be gone. Barian Brown, going to be out of eligibility. Nick Anderson could come back for a fifth year, although it feels unlikely. So you're going to lose those 5 guys. Who you would have returning likely, provided none of these guys transfer, which we always are going to assume somebody at these positions are going to leave. Kyle Parker would be back. Jelani Watkins, Kylan Billiot, Destin Hill, who just transferred in, and then your 2 freshmen, Teron Francis and Phillip Wright. That's 6 guys. Among those 6, the only with a collegiate reception so far is Kyle Parker, who missed the bulk of his freshman season last year with the elbow injury. So you're talking about if you don't add anybody else, right? The only players you have returning, 1 guy has a collegiate reception as of today. Now, that may change the season. We'll see who plays and who gets experience. But with all of that experience ahead of him, Anderson, Hilton, Thomas, Nick Anderson, Barian Brown, that's not even to count guys like Trey'Dez Green and Bauer Sharp, who are going to take targets and receptions as well. You have got to go load up at receiver, and not just in the high school class, but also in the transfer portal. And you may look at this and say, well, why go in the portal if it's just going to net you this result where you're going to bring in guys and 1 year later they're gone? Because you have to. Look at what's happened at that position in particular just in the last couple of years. Now, we followed this, right? And I've explained this before. So the everydayers, you've heard me say this, and thank you for being an everydayer. But every year on average in the portal era, you lose a quarter of your roster, right? So a quarter of your roster enter. This is not just LSU. This is across the board in college football. Roughly a quarter of all the players in college football enter the portal every year. So if you lose approximately a quarter of your roster, then after 2 years, half of your signing class is gone. I mean, think about it. We should be looking at a year where Jaylen Brown and Shelton Sampson and Kai Preon were all going into their 3rd years in Baton Rouge. Well, only Sampson made it to his 2nd year. Brown and Preon both left after their 1st year in Baton Rouge. Sampson left after his 2nd. So the point being, here you are in year 3 when you would anticipate those guys you recruited as freshmen coming, growing, developing, and be ready to be an impact guy. Well, they're not there, which necessitated going into the portal and getting Nick Anderson and Barian Brown and Destin Hill to fortify that receiver group because of the guys you lost from your recruiting class. So you've got to do both. Like, you've got to go fortify your numbers from the high school ranks, understanding that you go sign 4 or 5 receivers, there's a really good chance those guys aren't going to make it their entire career in Baton Rouge. And because you've had guys not make it, you're going to have to go add in the portal as well. But I don't want to distract from the case in point right here, which is, man, LSU not only has receivers committed, you have incredibly elite level receivers committed. Tristan Keys, the number 1 receiver in the country. Jabari Mack, number 82 nationally, number 11 receiver in the country. Kenny Darby, number 149 overall. So he's a top 150 player. Again, a kid from Louisiana up at Bossier at Airline. Then Ja'Kai Anderson, who's number 290 nationally. But Ja'Kai Anderson has, if you follow the recruiting rankings, he's one of those guys that has taken a massive leap in the rankings through this spring window here. And you imagine when he gets to the end of his senior year, he'll be certainly inside the top 200. We'll see how high he may go. So you're not just adding bodies at receiver, you're adding dudes at receiver, and Jabari Mack is among them. A kid from Louisiana, LSU had to get, and they got him in the class. Now, I'm going to knock out a quick break. I'm going to come back. I want to provide some context as well, because Shea Dixon from On 3 was with us earlier this week, and he was talking specifically about this receiving class. He did, in fact, mention Jabari Mack. But I want you to hear what he had to say, because it'll put some context around what's happening right now. Don't you move. It's Locked on LSU, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Of course, daylight savings snuck up on us again. And if you're feeling that lost hour of sleep, 5 Hour Energy has your back. The extra sunshine means more time for fun, but Sometimes you need a little boost to power through. Whether you're staying up late to watch the NCAA tournament, squeezing in a round of golf after work, or just trying to keep up with your busy day, 5-Hour Energy gives you that quick, refreshing pick-me-up whenever you need it. And look, it's on-the-go convenience. No matter where you are, at a game, traveling, or for me, at work every day before my 3-hour radio show, 5-Hour Energy and easy to grab, keeps you feeling refreshed. So head to 5hourenergy.com. You'll find over 15 flavors to choose from: watermelon, blue raspberry, peach mango. My personal favorite is the grape extra strength. You could build your own 12 or 24 pack and it'll be delivered right to your door. If you need one now, no worries. Grab a 5-Hour Energy shot at your local grocery or convenience store. They're everywhere. Stock up today and stay energized. Today's show is also brought to you by our friends. Today's show is also brought to you by Gametime. Imagine watching your favorite team live, feeling the energy of the crowd, witnessing unforgettable moments. There's nothing like experiencing a big game in person. Getting tickets shouldn't be stressful. That's where Gametime comes in, making it easier than ever to grab last-minute seats at unbeatable prices. Gametime Picks, it's curation that makes it easier to find a better value for tickets to sports, concerts, comedy, theater. Look, there's super deals as well, which include the lowest price guarantee, or Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. It offers you peace of mind. You can view your seats before you buy. There's no surprise fees and the lowest price guarantee, so you can book with total confidence. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. That's LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. I want to put some context around the class that LSU is building right now. And I want to call on Shea Dixon from On 3, the Bengal Tiger, to do this. So earlier this week on Tuesday, we talked to Shea Dixon, and we were talking about some of the guys that have been visiting campus this week. And he talked a little bit about Bo Bentley, the quarterback out of Texas, one of the top 10 quarterbacks in the country, who kind of has LSU climbing on his list. Well, he also talked about several receivers that were visiting campus this week. And give a listen to what Shea had to say here about the impact of this receiver class at LSU.
And then receiver, we've talked time and again that this could be a banner year at receiver, given what they already have committed. A couple of guys in Louisiana who are 4 stars, first-team All-State, playing in high classifications, Ja'Kai Anderson and Kenny Darby. But Booby Feaster was on campus, the top 10 wide receiver prospect who plays at DeSoto in Texas, a school LSU recruited well, but is also a guy who's from Louisiana. So then you look at Tristan Keys on campus right now. He's actually probably wrapping up his visit, but came in yesterday, saw practice today. I've talked about him on the show before, kind of because he's the number 1 receiver in the country and he's a 5-star, but more so because he went to Hattiesburg High, where I walked the halls with many moons ago. So, yeah, he's a major priority. And that's another thing that I think people just don't realize maybe when they think about a Mississippi kid. Well, you've got Ole Miss and State, and Bama's on him hard, and Tennessee. LSU, Baton Rouge is a 2.5-hour drive from Hattiesburg, and they've recruited the Pine Belt well. They got DJ Woodland out of Oak Grove. They just got Tyler Miller out of Laurel, and now shooting for Tristan Keys. So you mentioned those guys. Jabari Mack's over in Destrehan. He swung through and will again this month. Destrehan obviously is kind of a pipeline to LSU at this point. He's a top 100 player, regardless of position. This could be one of those classes that was a lot like the Brian Thomas, Malik, Chris Hilton, Jack Besh, to where you look up and LSU signed, 4 or 5 of the 15 best receivers in the country.
Remember that class in 2021. I want to remind you of this. In 2021, you had Deion Smith, who was actually the highest ranked receiver in that class. He was number 74 nationally. Now, remember what I just told you. Deion Smith, who was the highest ranked receiver in that class, was number 74 nationally. Chris Hilton was number 79 nationally. After that, Brian Thomas Jr. was 92 nationally. So you had 3 there in the top 100, but none higher than 75. Malik Neighbors was 175. Remember, he was at one point a Mississippi State commit before he flipped to LSU. Jack Bech was 257. Remember, Bech was the guy that was committed to Vanderbilt before he flipped to LSU. That you ended up not ever getting Deion Smith to campus, if you recall. He ended up going the JUCO route and went elsewhere. But Hilton, Thomas, Neighbors, Bech, and then, of course, Bech left after a couple of years in Baton Rouge. The point being that in this era, you've got to make sure that you go out and you get numbers, because even guys like Smith and Bech didn't make it their full careers here. Ended up being great. Look, Jack Bech had a great finish to his career at TCU. A great Senior Bowl, and is going to go be hopefully a day 2 draft pick and have a great NFL career. But look at what Thomas and Neighbors became, and what Hilton is still trying to become at LSU, provided he can stay healthy for a full season. There's a lot of reason to be optimistic about that. But just when you're looking, not that rankings mean everything, but that class, that great class, didn't have anyone higher than 75 in it. Now you're talking about having guys in this class already committed, including Tristan Keys, who's the number 1 receiver in the country who's committed for this class. And now you've already added Jabari Mack, who's number 82 nationally, Kenny Darby at 149, Ja'Kai Anderson at 290, and they are not done at receiver as well. So keep an eye on it as it moves out. You could be talking about possibly the best receiving class ever. And by the way, another hat tip to Destrehan. You heard Shay say it there. Kalaj Cobbins is already on the LSU roster from Destrehan. You just signed Jace Thomas, the defensive back for the class of 2025 from Destrehan. Now you've got Jabari Mack committed from Destrehan, and we can go throughout history. John Emery from Destrehan, Justin Jordan, Ricky Jefferson from Destrehan. I'm start naming names, and I'm going to leave guys out. But the point is, Destrehan has been an amazing pipeline for LSU throughout the years, and the next great one looks like it could very well be Jabari Mack, part of the 2026 class. Got to get him to December. Got to get him to sign on the dotted line. But a great start for LSU here. The number 1 class in America for 2026 with 9 commitments. And it is certainly a quality over quantity metric right now for LSU. Okay, that'll do it for us here on today's episode of Locked On LSU. If you're new, please subscribe on your favorite podcast app. Rate us, leave a review. If you're on YouTube, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell so you're notified whenever we post a new video. And let a friend know if they love the Tigers. We got you here every single day for Locked On LSU, your team every day.